Hello and welcome back, and let me tell you a quick story. Saturday night just gone. I'm sitting there on my sofa. I finally got a few hours to myself. I'm chilling out and I decide, you know what, I'm going to watch a movie. I've got my Plex media server, I've got a Jellyfin media server, but I've also got a few streaming services that I use and share with a few different people, naughty. And while I'm doing that, I decide to sort of find some interesting movies. I go down a rabbit hole and I find a movie called Extract. Have you heard of it? Nor had I. But I looked at the cast list and it was incredible. It had Jason Bateman, Mila Kunis, Kristen Wiig, J.K. Simmons, Ben Affleck, to name but a few. That wasn't even the full cast. This thing was stacked. And I noticed it was available via the Plex streaming service. I didn't own it, but it was available to stream. So I decided to give it a punt. This video is about me not understanding the point of the Plex streaming service. Now, before we're clear about this, I am not talking about Plex streaming your media, your TV shows, your box sets, your decades of movies. I'm not saying that. I completely understand that. Indeed, this channel has made, I think it must be somewhere like 50 to 70 different Plex videos. Been there, done that. I'm literally wearing the t-shirt. So with that in mind, I am talking about the ad-assisted streaming services to stream movies and TV shows that you don't own, to bring more money, they said, into the business. I want to pull it apart a little bit. This is something between one of our Raid Room videos and a normal video. You don't even need to have a Plex media server. You don't even need a paid Plex account in order to watch these. These are ad assisted. So let's make no bones. This is a purely optional service. This is not something weighing down the accounts of paid Plex Pass members. This is something for everyone. This is me not knocking having these options. I am talking about how this exists and the problems it can create. Unsurprisingly, I'm not averse to ad-assisted video-on-demand streaming. I mean, look where I am. It would be madness to suggest that I am anti these things. Thank you for subscribing. But there is a tactful way these things can be done. Some of you must have noticed in recent podcasts that you watch, videos that you watch, with a number of users like myself relying on YouTube's own ad placement algorithm to choose how it places ads, not just what the ads are that are being shown to you in line with your cookies. But the number of things that I watch and enjoy online where you see people saying, and today's episode is sponsored by X, and then halfway through the video, a new sponsor for Y comes in, and then you have pre-roll ads. This video is not to take down the idea of ad revenue, but Plex as a service is largely associated with playing your media in a glossy way. And as we see this company start to all but strike a line through its lifetime license, which does exist, but at a now exorbitant price point for many, the idea that this brand is relying on ad revenue in the way that it is worries me, because it makes me worry about how this model affects their bottom line, their balance sheet, and then eventually how it hurts users who are relying on playing their own media on this platform. Now, just like any other video-on-demand service, the Plex third-party streaming platform there is going to have to balance the books on revenue share and licensing. It has, just like any other streaming service page, a little list there that's updated over time of new things that have arrived and things that are ending their period of time on their video-on-demand, so things come and go. So therefore, revenue share is something we have to discuss. We don't know, it's not published online, how much of the money generated from these advertisements go to Plex, how much goes to the original licensees, the owners of that media. One assumes it is percentage based, with Plex taking the lion's share and some kind of subsidiary sums going towards either licensee or bulk licensees, you know, your Touchstone Pictures if you're a Relic, but obviously your Warner Brothers and more. But what's intriguing to me is how it's generated at all. So if you look online, there was an article on the website Streamable from 2025 and written by David Satin. And he did some testing there on both TV shows and movies. And he found that in a 30-minute TV show, there was a pre-roll advertisement of around 30 to 60 seconds and 2 to 3 3-minute advert rolls, comprising of between 5 to 6 adverts that were all around 20 to 30 seconds each. And that was in a 30-second show. That includes the pre-roll. You're looking at 3 minutes of adverts total to maybe 3.5. Now, when you went to a movie he classified, if you went for 90 minutes, and do you remember when movies were 90 minutes? He had it classified at 5 adverts of around 3 minutes each over the course of a 90-minute movie, with a pre-roll ad of between 30 and 60 seconds that advertised a lot of its own services. None of these were skippable. You could pause them, but you couldn't skip them. Which brings me back to that actor stacked movie Extract. Say that 3 times fast. The movie that I watched on Saturday night. And I was so appalled by the ad placement, I actually went ahead and re-recorded the viewing experience. When you watch this movie, which is 91 minutes long, there is a 30-second pre-roll ad. This is followed 8 minutes later with 5 more ads at 20 to 30 seconds each. Then at the 19-minute mark, there was another 5 ads at 30 to 32 seconds each. Then at the 30-minute mark, 6 more ads instead of 5 at 20 to 30 seconds each. At the 40-minute mark, there was 5 ads. At the 50-minute mark, there was 3 ads. And at the 70-minute mark, there was a sultry, lonely ad that was 30 seconds long. That meant that all of the adverts were stacked so heavily at the start that following the movie and enjoying the movie, and by the way, it was a trash movie anyway, was really difficult. And not only did it ruin the movie experience, but on top of that, it made watching the movie, if I was to bail out of it, it was so front-loaded with ads that it actually harmed me ever wanting to watch this movie. It wasn't even just about the movie's plot and how it was broken up with these ads being clumsily inserted mid-dialogue, but on top of that, it was the idea that the very purpose of this service was not being served. I know there are going to be those of you that say in the comments the purpose of it was to make money and therefore it was served, and I get it. Just let me be idealistic for just a minute, all right? But how much does this ad revenue actually generate for Plex, and how much is Plex's business model increasingly built around this ad-assisted streaming service? Now, Plex doesn't actually publish the precise numbers, but we can see some pretty glaring facts already with reporting online. It's reported that Plex has well in excess of 50,000 TV shows and movies available, as well as access to 600 or more free live TV channels, with Plex inserting a pre-roll and mid-roll ad breaks throughout the course of users watching this content. Again, this all adds up to thousands of views, although the precise CPM or clicks per minute, I would argue, is negligible. How many of us actually do click on the ads with that ambiguous line between what we see and what we eventually buy? And the revenue split that's generated from this, we still don't know what's being split between the movie owners and Plex themselves. And then finally, you've got transactions in referrals. Plex has got a discovery aggregator feature. Plex earns referral fees when users click through to rent products, subscribe to third-party streaming services through this doorway, and let's be honest, I'm not a stranger myself to referral and affiliated services there. I can see how these things would work. My concern is when you have a platform that most people enter into because it's their media streams their way, just what is the numbers that Plex are generating here to keep things afloat? And is it a ticking time bomb to eventually Plex having an ad-assisted tier along the way? But again, there are receipts. April 2021, we saw them raise $50 million specifically to fund this transition into AVOD and fast streaming. Then, CEO Keith Valery confirmed that Plex's ad revenue grew 45% year on year in 2023. So again, there is clearly going to be an appeal for them down this road. And then in January 2024, when a lot of us were starting to worry about job losses, starting to worry about Plex's stability financially, they raised $40 million in growth equity. And again, they're not going to get that kind of money without good reason, or at least those funding that wanted to see a return on investment. Ultimately, my concern is a lot of this being inserted into the way people enjoy their content, be it simply on the dash or when content is recommended to users accessing their Plex account that they don't own and be swayed away from it for the wrong reasons. Now, I don't have to be that hypothetical, either call it by bug or by design. It's already been reported numerous times online, way back a couple of years to very recently in 2026, that there are users that have had a file, a movie, a TV show on their Plex Media Server system that is on their NAS, and when a file has been accessed, if it has been available on the streaming platform, the streaming version was played, the one with ads. Again, was it a bug? Was it by design? We don't know, and I hope it's a bug. But it still maintains the fact that that feels to me like a very easy error to avoid. I don't think you watching this would see the issue. I think a lot of you, when you're about to play the file and go, whoop, why does that say ad assisted or stream? But when you're giving access to your Plex Media Server account to relations, to your kids, to far off friends, adding them to your streamable friends list, some of these users may not even realize they're not accessing your version being played at 720p. Perhaps the version they've got is some director's cut, or let's be honest, the worst one is that your friends are now watching ad assisted content and you've got the same file on your server doing nothing. You might think, oh, my CPU didn't have to work very hard that day. But I think the majority of users, if you don't feel embarrassed, you'll just feel annoyed. Meanwhile, on the other end of the seesaw, there are users that are actually wondering why they can't add these services to their existing Plex Pass account to pay a small nominal sum rather than watch ads like we see with any streamable service when they have their standard free ad assisted tier or a slightly more expensive ad free version. So although I'm not one of those users, I have to acknowledge that there are users out there who would quite like that service to be added into Plex Pass. I think we have to be realistic. It can't be added to Plex Pass for no additional cost because these things are using outside assets to get the job done. It's not your server running your CPU and just a Plex relay point that's getting bounced off of. Still, nonetheless, I do think there is a middle ground available here that is reachable, that no one seems to be getting what they want. Again, myself and you have to be realistic that Plex has to remain afloat, and unfortunately, as the weight of the existing user base of Plex continues to be there, Plex needs to make money, and I completely understand that. But this doesn't feel like the best way to do it, where you seem to be pleasing one person and pissing off 9. And the more this persists, the harder it's going to be to change course on this. We talked about this with Plex Pass, where they should have incrementally, year on year, increased the price very granularly, rather than this giant dump on pricing. And all of this is happening while the majority of users, that even Plex Pass holders that have been with Plex for the longest time, are now starting to look at the darling of the indie home lab community, Jellyfin, which, let's be honest, has had something of a wobble with its leadership recently. Thank you so much for your video, Alex. Come over here and have some fish and chips and put down your burger and fries, mate. But still, nonetheless, Jellyfin has found a way to maintain that stability. And Plex, although clearly bigger, has starting to have this shakeable position in the industry that is just not sustainable. And all of these measures all seem to be plasters on a shotgun wound that need to be better addressed. Again, I'm no expert, and I feel maybe that I'm wazzing unfairly on them here, but I do think introducing an additional payment tier into Plex Pass for these streamable services that is purely optional may be a way to include this. Maybe a paid access into just the streaming services instead of the ads. Maybe that wouldn't be profitable enough. I just think me watching a terrible film for 90 minutes and adding what was, I believe, in excess of 15 minutes of advertisements in that movie, in the worst possible way it could have been done, was not the way to do it. But hell, why should I be worried? Why should you be worried? It's not like Plex would go ahead and start introducing ads onto their platform, is it? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.